The Responder Fit podcast is built for the men and women who run towards danger. Military, law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS workers who give everything on this job and deserve the same energy when it comes to their own lives. Each episode features guest speakers diving into topics that matter most to first responders, such as physical fitness, mental health, tactical training, range days, and the brotherhood and culture that comes with the lifestyle. Whether you're looking to optimize your performance on and off duty, or you just want real conversations with people who get it, this is the show for you. Welcome to the Responder Fit podcast. I got my friend Robert over here. He's going to introduce himself momentarily. Rob, take it away.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. My name's Robert. I was a firefighter 2 miles north of the Detroit border. And after my first year coming into the fire service with personal training experience and nutrition certifications, still gained 25 pounds in my first year, even with all of that. And so I came up with a program and started working on something that I wanted for myself. And eventually this turned into something that I was able to provide to other firefighters, especially on the career side, with the stuff that they go through and how traditional fitness plans, because of sleep deprivation, station diets, the whole nine, you got to approach it a little bit different, and created a program that has me now coaching other firefighters full time. So thanks for having me on, man. I'm really passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to have you. Yes, let's dig into it a little bit. So what made you want to become a fireman?
Oh, this is a great question. All right. So a lot of things, man, but I'll go into two specific stories. The thing that made me want to be a firefighter goes back to a core fundamental belief that I have that has pretty much informed on every major life decision that I have made up to this point. So when I was 17 years old, my first mentor ever, and I grew up inside a martial arts school, he taught me in one conversation. It's like, you ever have like one of those light bulb moments? You know, you're just like, oh, my life's different now forever because of this conversation. It was one of those. And we were talking, and I asked him like, hey, like, you know, how do you change the world? You know, cliche, naive, 17-year-old. And he looked at me very straightforward and he said, there's only two ways. He said, you either change people's lives or you save them. Everything else misses the mark. And then from then on, I was like, that's it. Like, everything that I do is going to fall into one of those two categories or both. And so I've done a lot of things in my life up to this point, and they look different. Like, before I became a firefighter, I founded and operated a nonprofit for 4 years.
Really?
And then, yeah. And then COVID happened, and it was a like travel-based service organization. And COVID didn't agree with that very well. So that didn't end up making it through. But I did that. I was going to open a martial arts school. I was going to do all these other things. Became a firefighter. Now with what I'm doing, it looks very different. It looks very scattered. But to me, it was all for the same reason. It was all for the same thing. I never saw them as different. I just saw them as different vehicles to pursue that purpose. So when I thought about becoming a firefighter after the nonprofit went under, it was a very simple, you know, gut. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that this fits the bill. There was a second part to this as well, which is my uncle. His name was Sean Goldie. He worked, retired as a battalion chief in St. Clair Shores, Michigan. He encouraged me to do it. He had been a firefighter my whole life, and I really looked up to him. And he's one of the primary motivators for this program in the first place, because as we know, cancer takes a lot of lives in the fire service. And my uncle Sean fell into that category 6 months into my first year. And this is the guy that gave me his spare set of turnouts for my academy. You know, he retired shortly after I started, and then 6 months later, he was in the ground. And so the reason I became a firefighter was for the first story. The reason that one of the big reasons that I made this program is because of him.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow. Now, how long have you been a fireman for?
So I was a firefighter for 4 years, just 2 miles north of the Detroit border.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where after a certain amount of time developing this program, and I work for free, dude. I mean, you probably know, like, the starting up something like this is not like, people say it grows to something like, oh, must be so nice. I'm like, dude, I like years. I built this program for years. I worked with people for free for years before I saw any kind of return on it. But then when I did, it escalated very quickly. In the span of like taking my first client to 4 or 5 months later, I was maybe saying forced to exit is a little extreme, but I did get sat down by my first mentor in the fire service. It was a captain that I really admire. And he said, listen, man, I love what you're doing. I've watched you build this, watched you do this for free for a long time. But he said, hey, you either got to like pump the brakes on it or you have to go. And I was like, what? And he's like, listen, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. Things here, like, I can tell that you're half in, half out. Like you got one foot in both worlds and you're not completely here when you're here, and things are slipping. Yeah. And I can see it in your energy. I can see it in your stress. I can see it in how you're showing up, interacting with patients. I can see it in all of these things. So the solution is, it's one of those two. You either like have to rebalance by pumping the brakes on your business, or you have to go all in on your business and you have to go. And he goes, I don't want you to go, but those are your options. And so like had to hear it from him, and it was right. And the truth is that I didn't admit to him at the time, but I can admit now, is things weren't just slipping at the fire department. Things were slipping with my clients. So he was right. It was 50-50 in each world. I'd do 24-hour shifts, come home, and then work 12 to 14 hours every day I was off. And I did that for 9 months. And so it catches up to you, right? Like I wasn't really getting the recovery. I didn't have a day off. And it's not like a woe is me story. It's like, hey, is this practical? Right. How long can you go on like that? And then the second part, which I consider more important, which is, if the mission, the goal, and the purpose of the business that I built is to change the story and create a culture that has different statistics like visibly seen around what kills firefighters and first responders, primarily cardiac arrest, cancer, and suicide. If we can see a visible, tangible difference in those things because of a cultural change that we create within the industry, is that really a mission that I can justify doing part-time? Say, hey, this is the goal, but I'm only going to do it on the weekends. Is it going to happen? Is it going to succeed? And so like the hardest conversation I ever had with myself was, okay, well, if I really believe that, then what is going to be required of me to do it? And so I concluded that I would never forgive myself if I didn't see what I could do. I said, hey, if it doesn't work out, I tried. But I never want to have to look back and wonder what would have happened if I didn't pump the brakes on it.
Right.
And we're still here.
That's awesome. It's amazing. Yeah, I totally agree. Like back when I was working at the firehouse, I was bringing in all my foods. This is before I started getting into like actual bodybuilding, because I did a whole prep into a bodybuilding show. And I remember I brought up one of my meals into dispatch, and I'm like hanging out with one of the dispatchers. He's like, what's that you got? I'm like, oh, just a little chicken, rice, broccoli, whatever. He's like, why are you always bringing in all that weird food? I'm like, what weird food? He's like, oh, you got that? He's like, you got the apples, you got this and that. And I go, yeah, I want to eat healthy. He's like, don't even get me started with the health kick. And I'm like, dude, I understand what the issue is. Why is it, I want to eat a little healthier, be better for myself. It's a problem.
Yeah. Do you know the etymology of weird? The word weird?
No.
If you trace it back far enough, it was used as a phrase to explain the ability to control destiny. You say, oh, that's weird. It's like, all right, so I guess it's weird to control the food that goes into your mouth. It's weird to control the body composition that you have. It's weird to make choices that have a direct impact that you can actually take responsibility for. You say this is weird. It's weird because I think most people would be more comfortable with the fact that the circumstances of their life are more responsible for their outcomes than their decisions are. And while certainly circumstances can play a role, I think you and I have both seen enough cases and enough instances of, like, if you're that type of person that can just show up to their life the same way that they show up to like a chaotic fire ground or medical or domestic dispute, you know, and handle the situation. Like, how often have you come across a call where like dispatch didn't have any information for you? Or worse, maybe you got inaccurate information. You show up expecting one thing and then it just turns into a completely other kind of situation. But nobody, no first responder in any of those situations accepts that impartial data or incorrect data or changing circumstances is a part of their job. There is not one first responder on the planet that will show up to that situation and then be like, oh, no, I can't handle this. I'm going to pack up my bags and go. Not one.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to like my diet or my exercise, my personal outcomes in day-to-day life, like we turn the switch off and we're just like, nah, this is like not, I can't, it's impossible. I'm like, what? If you just applied the mindset that you have every day that you're on shift, like what would be different in your day-to-day life? And you don't have to switch that flip. You don't have to flip that switch off, right? It's just this crazy like cognitive dissonance where it's like you literally have now, because of your job, the skill set that like probably less than 5% of the population have, that you've been forced to develop. Why are we so selective with where we use it?
Right.
You know, you have the mindset like, I will solve this problem no matter what. And how many times have you had to think outside the box to get it done? Can you approach other problems in your life that way? It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Now, why don't you walk me through your own fitness lowest low? What the determination that made you say, you know what, like, I got to get better in shape, if you ever were out of shape?
Yeah, it was, man. Like I said, I came in, I think very similar story to you, like certified with National Academy of Sports Medicine, personal training, nutrition. I was like, oh, I got this. I'm going to stay in shape. Now, the low, it starts with a story. And that story goes like this. My first week, I came in and listen, I didn't, like when I was doing clinicals, I brought my own food. I never had any problems, right? Did a lot of clinicals and I did this like super accelerated 4-month medic program out in Indiana. It was great, but it was 7 days a week for 4 months. And I would never want to do it again or put anybody else through it unless you're like really impatient like I was. It's besides the point. I just didn't have any issues. I did that throughout the course of my entire clinical experience. That's the point. I showed up at the fire department thinking that I could do the same thing because I had lived my life that way for a decade, you know, very on top of that. And after the first week, I had a lieutenant who was responsible for training me, and he sat me down. He's like, hey, come into the day room with me. Sat me down at the table, and he said, look, I understand that you don't know how things work in the fire service. He goes, but this thing around food, he goes, if I can't legally tell you to stop bringing your own food, but I promise if you don't, then me and the rest of the crew, we're going to run you out of here. And I was like, oh, okay. So in that moment, I decided to compromise and be like, okay, I can, you know, figure this out. I can make this work. Now, let me be very clear. I did not work at a department that thought health was a priority, especially when it came to nutrition. I mean, they might have pamphlets and flyers that said otherwise, but like the actions and the behaviors certainly did not reflect this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I compromised. And like I said at the beginning of this discussion, after my first year, regardless of all of the certifications and all the other stuff, lifestyle habits, fatigue, energy, you ask about the lowest moment. Well, it's probably, you know, right after I got off probation, where it was supposed to be this giant celebration and everybody's like, you should be so proud of yourself. It's such a milestone achievement. And I remember thinking like, for what? Like I looked in the mirror and I was like, what are they talking about, man? Like, what am I not seeing that they're seeing? Because I get like, hey, you've been accepted. You're off probation. You're a full-fledged member. got it. I understand that. But like what I saw in the mirror and like the way that I felt about myself. And then when I really thought about it, it's like, yeah, I put on 25 pounds. It's the heaviest I'd ever been.
Wow.
And remember looking in the mirror, and what was more upsetting was like, yeah, my performance suffered, my cardio, my strength, my energy, my fatigue, my relationships. But the thing that was the hardest to think about was the fact that I had compromised on values that I held as being like integral to who I was. It was the fact that I didn't stay true to who I wanted to be. And so those feelings of like self-loathing came from the fact that I knew I didn't like stick up for the things that I believed in. So the lowest moment was supposed to be at the peak, and I found myself at the bottom of the mountain.
Wow. Tell me about a good call you've been on. Let's change gears a little bit. Any good funny calls?
Oh, dude, I mean, how many? I could keep you here for 3 hours, man. With
That's fine.
Funny calls, dude. Like I can't even. Where do I even begin? Funny calls. I mean,
even one that resonates with you.
Yeah, man. I mean,
I try to inspire like the younger guys who listen in who have ambitions to be like firemen. They always like to hear like, yeah, tell me your best story. So.
Oh yeah, sure, man. I give you one that was like a crazy situation.
Yeah.
And I just give you a couple of examples of like the stuff that people call EMS for. I mean, like, you know,
dude, you don't gotta tell me, man.
Yeah, like
the 2 a.m. Oh yeah, I've had a headache for 3 days. I decided to call at 2 a.m.
Yeah, one of the ones that I went on one time was the call came in as jaw pain, right? Okay. And we show up and the person's like outside on the, with their bags packed. You know how that goes. Like they're outside on the front porch, like backpack ready to go, meet you out front. And I go, so like, what's this jaw pain about? And he goes, my teeth are itchy. And I go, excuse me? Because my teeth, they itch. And I was like, when was the last time you went to the dentist? And he was like, I don't go to the dentist. And I was like, well, I think we figured out the problem, man. Like you want to like make an appointment at your, trying to be slick. Like, I don't want to transport this guy, And he's like, no, I want to go to the ER. I was like, like itchy teeth, man. I'll never forget that one. It lives in my head rent free. Another crazy medical call. This one is like funny and it's not funny.
Yeah.
So me and my partner, we got a call like 3 a.m. And I know you're in law enforcement. This isn't a dig at law enforcement, but the information came from law enforcement. That's all I'll say. All right. Maybe like there was some kind of miscommunication with dispatch and stuff like that. But the call came out at 3 a.m. as PD on scene with a PD on scene with somebody complaining of leg pain, right? They arrested somebody. They were complaining of leg pain. Oh, cool. Well, not cool. Like it's 3 a.m. I'm like, keep the engine back. Like this is obviously an ambulance only call. And we get there and we're not going lights. Like this is a PD on scene contained situation. Leg pain is the complaint. Okay. We go normal traffic to an underpass. And when we show up, parked back, about 100 yards from where we can access with the ambulance, they have the prisoner, right? The person that was under arrest. And we walk over with our stretcher, and there's maybe 30 police officers. And I'm like, and they're from all these jurisdictions. Like, it wasn't my city. It was from like 4 or 5 different jurisdictions, and they were all there for this one person. And I was like, what am I missing? They get over there and the guy is like crumpled on the ground. And I'm like, what happened? He's like messed up. He's messed up. And it's like, oh, police officer comes over and he's like, oh, well, he came from the city that was like 10, 15 miles away. He goes, there was a high speed chase And they went through all these jurisdictions. All the police officer came in and said, went through like 4 jurisdictions, crashed his car on the overpass, then got out of the car and then jumped off the overpass into the street below. And so I was like, yeah, he's got leg pain. He's also got head pain, arm pain, back pain, everything pain. It's like, oh my God, this is a major trauma. Like, we got to go. But nobody around like knew what was going on. They're like, he seems fine. And the dude was like cracked out and stuff. It's like, oh, okay. So now I'm on scene with my partner. We got to haul this guy 100 yards, no help, like that. That was one of the situations where I was like, oh my God, dude. Talk about like what we were talking about earlier. So you show up for leg pain. No, this guy dropped however many feet a highway overpass is into the street below and then ran 100 yards before and it's like it called in for leg pain. Like what happened? It ended up being fine. Well, as far as I know, because like you don't hear anything after you drop off the patients. But
yeah.
And then last story. This one's just like crazy. My first fire. We had a big storm, and we spent all day. It was one of those days like you do 40 calls in 3 hours, and they're all down power lines. And our city was made of paper mache, so like every time there was a light breeze, there's just power lines going down left and right. And one of them, they had a glowing socket in the house, inside the house. And I was like, this one's weird. And they went and checked it out, and then it stopped. There's like the glowing red socket inside. And then it stopped. And so like after a couple hours, the people on scene were like, all right, I think we're good. We can go. And like they had a bunch of other calls. So like, all right, we got to go handle some other stuff. This one seems to be fine. Whatever weird happened. Well, we get a call back 2 a.m. And the house is like completely or the back of the house where the socket was completely involved. And so we get in, we do our thing, do a quick knock. But before we do, my lieutenant, he's sounding the door, and he goes in with the Halligan and he sounds it and he gets shocked. He gets shocked on the door, and he's like, what the, he goes, what the fuck? And then of course, like probably most firemen would do, he's like, I'm gonna do that again. It's like, all right, yeah, let's see, I'll do that again. And then the second time he's fine, and we bust in, do our thing. We got overhaul. Well, while we're in there, we got another jurisdiction coming up, like a second due, because we ran a lot of mutual aid. It was a smaller department. And they report that when they showed up, we were inside, we were interior, and they said that the house from the tip, the house itself was arcing. Like there was arcing into the streets. So we get this information, and my lieutenant's like, everybody get out, and figuring out. Now, we had knocked the fire down, and most of it had been under control, but we hadn't had an opportunity to do overhaul. And the house was still smoking, and we knew that there was fire up in the void spaces. And he was like, well, we can't until we figure this out. Like, we got to, well, a few hours go by, and we're like, this thing's starting to catch again. It's just like, you're gonna like do something. Made the call, got in there, like did the overhaul, took care of things. But this house was like the entire thing from top to bottom, it was like electrified. And so like very carefully, like made a calculated decision and knocked it out and completely got it under control. Well, what ended up happening, it took the fire marshal and the electrical service in Michigan to figure it out 3 days to figure out what caused this to happen. 3 or 4 doors down, there was a down power line that was backfeeding a ground wire that led up into the house where that socket was. And it was electrically charging the entire house from the down wire that was 3 doors down that nobody had ever called in.
Wow.
That was my first fire ever. Like talk about an interesting situation, man. That was probably the craziest one I ever went to too. Yeah. It was like, what a crazy, like unusual situation. You just never know.
Yeah.
Right.
My first working fire was at my paid department. We're outside, all smoking cigars in the front of the little ambulance bay. Guy drives up to the firehouse, gets out, nonchalant, walks over to us. He goes, hey, are you guys like firemen? I'm like, yeah, we are. We got a few EMTs. Like, what do you need? I'm thinking, he's an ambulance, whatever, right? He goes, oh, yeah, my kitchen's on fire. I'm like, oh. I go, did you call 911? He's like, no. I figured I'd drive down here and, just report it. I'm like, what? I'm like, no way. I'm like, dude, where do you live? So he's like, I live like over here. I'm like, all right, cool. You know what? Like, I'll go, I'll take one of the fly cars. I'll go see, right? Go. As I'm driving, we're getting close to his house. I'm like, damn, his whole
See
house.
the header? See the header?
See the column. I'm like, so I go over the air. I'm like, yeah, go boys, it's work. And still to this day, I'm like, dude, why did you drive? Like, he had a phone on him. He drove to the firehouse. I'm like, dude, you got to realize some fire departments are volunteers. There's nobody in their firehouse. You just got lucky, I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But with that, let's change gears a little bit. So what do you recommend for a fireman who is trying to get into the gym? Where do you think he should start?
This is a great question. So I think the answer to this is don't compare, and this is what we do, right, as human beings. Don't compare your first attempt or your first year to somebody's year 10. Everything that they've been able to build up to that point. So have you ever met a first responder or a firefighter that was like a bit of an all or nothing attitude?
Yeah.
It's pretty prevalent, right?
Yeah.
Part of the dynamic or part of the personality types that are brought in, right, to this kind of work. But that attitude, if you don't keep it under lock and key, is the thing that will get you that will stop you from being able to see results long term, right? Because if you think that you're going to start, right, we got 50% of the fire service doesn't even work out, like at all, right? You tell them, all right, tomorrow I want you to put on all of your gear. We're going to do gear workouts and we're going to hit it hard 2 hours a day for 6 days a week, and you're going to dial in every single nutrition plan, and like you did bodybuilding stuff. Most of those guys don't want to. So they think, right? They're like, oh, if I have to worry about my nutrition, I have to be as dialed as somebody who's doing bodybuilding, which is also not the case, right? Just enough to make the change. I want them, and my advice would be, all right, if you're going to do this, I want you to approach it the same way you did when you were a probie, right? So what do you do? How do you learn when you're a probie? Well, you learn a piece at a time, don't you? I mean, nobody goes in on their first day unless they just had a horrible boss and was like, all right, first day of training, we're going to advance hose. We're going to go do vertical ventilation. We're going to force a door. We're going to do a primary search, VEIS. And I'm going to have you, doing a CPR scenario all at once. Pull out down firefighter CPR. It's like, what? Like, if you did that, how successful do you think the person would be? Well, what would probably happen is if they did that over and over again, they would probably get jaded, frustrated, and they would quit. Right? Here's another analogy. Like every person in the MLB, I'm from Detroit. So let's take Cabrera, right? Baseball player, a famous baseball player. Even he probably started with a softball. Right? Eventually, built up to, all right, he can handle a 98 mile per hour pitch. Great. But where did he start? Nobody ever thinks it's like, oh, you look at the people that are the most successful and you're like, oh, that's the bar. Like, no, it's not. Like, how you start is by starting with one step, getting better at that one thing at a time until you have stuff that's a system, until you have it built into your life in a way that you don't have to think about it so much anymore. And then you can move on to the next thing. So it's not this thing where it's all or nothing. I do everything all at once. And then if I don't, I just do nothing, because that's the way most of us treat it. But if you could approach your life the same way that you learned any other skill, because this is a skill, this is something. How do you learn skills? One step at a time. And as the saying goes that I grew up with in the dojo, the journey of 1,000,000 miles begins with one step. Like, okay, take one step. Don't try to take 40. Your first day. Start with a thing, get good at that, move on to the next, the same way that you learn to do the job. That would be my best piece of advice. Is that I think there's a little bit too much emphasis on like a CrossFit, all gas, no brakes, no focus on recovery lifestyle. That's not practical for the fire service.
Yes. Because everyone wants to get these results so quickly. It took you 5-10 years to get to where you are now. They're like, oh, I'm going to crash diet. I'm going to work out 7 days a week. I'm going to run miles. It's like, you're going to burn out by day 5. You're doing way too much. Let's just start with simple habit stacking. Let's fix one thing at a time. And it's actually funny. I just got off the phone call with someone the other day at my old firehouse. There's a guy that I used to work with. He's about like 300 pounds. And he goes, Jerry, he's like, let me tell you. He goes, I was on the phone talking to that guy. He goes, I had to tell him, it's like, let's start with cutting out just soda from your diet. He's like, you were 300 pounds. He was like, God forbid you go to a second floor of a working fire. And he's like, and the floor starts to give way. He's like, with you on it, it's going to go. So he's like, you got to think about that for yourself. So he was telling me just by him dropping the soda, he's already down 15 pounds. He was doing a liter a day. How crazy.
Yeah, man. That reminds me of a story. I got on with a call with a lieutenant who was interested in my program. When we got down to his lifestyle habits, he was drinking 10 energy drinks a day, and not the sugar-free ones.
Yeah.
Those are about 150, 200 calories a pop. 2,000 calories a day just dedicated to energy drinks. Not to mention the caffeine that's probably 10 times the, effective dose. Yeah. Talk about things that put, you at elevated risk. Anyways, yeah, that's a thing, right? So a liter a day, probably at least close to, that's a lot of extra calories if we're drinking regular pop, Yeah.
Yeah. Even like down to, I have a few clients who are volunteer firefighters. You talk to these guys, every meeting, training, drill, fundraiser, holiday party, it's all these trays of food, pizza, wings. And I'm like, and you eat that all the time? He's like, yeah. He's like, for example, he's like, Monday we have a training, Wednesday we have a drill, and Friday we have a department or company meeting. I'm like, so you're eating all of that all 3 days? He goes, yeah. I go, you don't see like there's a little bit of a pattern? He's like, well, I mean, he's like, instead of getting the pizza, I'll just swap it out for the pasta with this and that. And, then I'm slugging down, the Cokes. And then after we finish the drill, we throw back a ton of beers. And I'm like, yeah, but I go, you're telling me you're trying to lose weight. I go, how's that helping you? I go, you could do it in moderation, but I go, not every week or every other week or once a month. I go, you got to be a little bit more restrictive,
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like deprivation, which is, again, now we're back to this like all or nothing attitude, right?
Yeah.
You cannot lose weight or improve these things without some degree of restriction. Right. So when people hear that, they're like, all right, I'm going to cut it out entirely. So, well, maybe we're treading into deprivation. Maybe we're treading into extremes. Usually, like, if you can give yourself just that little like 10%, like, and then the rest of the time you're on top of your stuff. Like, restriction doesn't have to be extreme, right? I think that word kind of makes people feel like, okay, I have to cut everything out. I have to be perfect. And it's like, no, perfection is like where consistency goes to die. Right. And so the other part that you brought up that I want to touch on is like kind of a personal beef that I have with the industry, the fire service, which is, we teach people how to be firefighters. We don't teach them how to live as firefighters, live within the realm of it. And when I say personal beef, it's like, all right, well, how easy would it be? How many trainings do you have in the fire service for like anything, dude, anything? Like they come up with trainings for all sorts of stuff. You know what I never see? I never see like the people who are responsible for making meals at the station being sent to a nutrition class or how to cook. What, like, all right, if this is a priority and it's such a big part of health, and you have one person that's responsible for the nutrition of an entire crew, how are we not sending people to these classes so that even they get even the very basics of nutrition and cooking, like that most people don't know. So you say, hey, we're talking about this person that you were referring to. Well, like, there's a piece of it where it's like, if he really wanted to know, he could make the changes and like learn and seek out the information. Sure, there's the personal accountability, but also we don't set them up for success. We do not, like most people, most Americans know next to nothing about how nutrition works. And everybody that's gotten good at it has been self-taught. or took a formal education. There's even smaller, degree of people. But like, how much of that problem could be solved by it's just like, oh, you're going to start cooking for the crew. Great. You got to go to this nutrition and cooking class. It's 2 weeks. Buckle down. This is not for you. This is for the sake of your crew. And you framed it like that.
Yeah.
Like, what would change if just that one step was included into the equation? You know, this is a big responsibility. You're cooking for the crew. That is a huge responsibility. Okay.
Right.
Or it should be taken as one. It shouldn't be taken as like, I'm going to do whatever's fast and easy for me. Why don't you do whatever is going to put your crew in a position to succeed? Sorry for my tangent.
No, that was awesome, you know, and it's the truth, because not only does it affect everything you do for yourself, but you're now affecting the crew by eating how you eat. And just a caveat on that, it's like, look at when you go inside, you have a 30-minute bottle, right? You're sucking the bottle dry. You haven't even been inside for 5 minutes. Don't you think that's a problem? You know, you're already going out to switch your bottle. So it's kind of like, when do we start taking, hey, all right, listen, you know, my health is now starting to get out of control, where it's now affecting, you know, my brothers and sisters inside the building, or it's now affecting me from actually trying to make that save because now I'm out of air, you know? So it's like, as a first responder, and it's a hill I'll die on, you have no other option but to get in shape. You have to do it for helping everyone else. You know, you signed up to answer the call. Now you're answering the call, but you can't perform. What are we doing? Mm-hmm. You know, and it goes back to, because some guys are like, well, why do I have to work out? Why do I have to lift weights? How many lift assists do you go on? Where does that come from? Where's that strength come from? You know, and you don't work out already. So now what good are you? You know, yes, many hands make, you know, light work, but some agencies, they can't even get you a second engine. They can't get you a rescue. They can't get you a truck. It's just you. It's maybe you and 3 other people if you're lucky, you know? So it's like, you have to start training. So sorry, that's my tangent.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you remember a specific client transformation story that still sticks with you? It could be a fireman, it doesn't have to be one, but
I've pretty much only worked with firemen, so
yeah,
that's easy. But yeah, I have a couple of examples. I'll keep it to one, maybe two. Yeah. The first one is always a special one, right? The first person. This is before, like, this is somebody that like was the guinea pig for my program. I talk about him a lot actually in my social media. He's all over it. His name's Kyle, and he worked at my fire department. And he was a guy that, when I talk to these all gas, no brakes people, right? It's like, okay, I'm not going to work out at all. Well, Kyle was a power lifter, and he's like, nope, I have no excuses. I'm 7 days a week. I wake up at 4 a.m. before my shifts, go get my workout in. I'm lifting heavy, deadlifting, 2-3 times a week, heavy, big weight. Became a firefighter, still doing that. Great. It's admirable willpower. Now, what's the problem when you enter the fire service? Work at a busy department. You're already sacrificing more sleep when you're up 6 calls after midnight. Well, Kyle on his probation, and I was tiptoeing around like, I don't really agree with how you're doing things, man. Like, maybe this is a little bit much, and he had been stuck. He lost 100 pounds doing this, but then he got stuck for like a year and a half, just like same weight, couldn't seem to just break through the plateau. And I think 3 or 4 months into his probation acting like this, he tore a hamstring on shift. And then he was off on his probation on comp. And we know how that goes, right? You might just take 3 months to get an MRI, let alone like get a procedure or heal. So he came back. He had gained back some weight, because he was down and out, hadn't been able to work out. And he goes, all right. He goes, I'm starting to think that maybe you have some points that are worth listening to. So we did like the opposite, right? And we put the recovery as the foundation of his program. So listen, man, the progress doesn't happen when you beat yourself up in the gym. The progress happens when you grow from the stimulus. So the way that it works is it's stimulus, recovery, adaptation. And you have to allow the recovery piece to happen, or the adaptation will not. And so you're going to stay stuck spinning your wheels if you get that. Now, there's less people in this category, right? Admittedly, but you can be extreme in both fashions. So, all right, you have to put the focus on the recovery, and you have to have even more when you're working at a busy department. It has to be the number one priority. So we dialed in some of his nutrition, but simply not in a way that was going to make it impossible for him to, follow through on in chaotic shifts and stuff like that. We followed simple, easy replacements and calculations. That, again, the goal wasn't perfection. The goal was, I'm consistent. I'm consistent. I'm going to have a couple off days. Okay, you get back on the horse. I'm going to give myself a range to work in. I'm going to be consistent with my diet at the station and at home. Great. Well, in 90 days, he was down 40 pounds. He broke through his plateau like instantly, and he was working out. He was working out 30% as much as he was before he tore his hamstring.
Wow. And
so that, having him, his whole life transformation being 140 pound difference, you should see the before and after on this guy. But from 265 to 225 in 90-day time frame, doing less. That was the first example. I was like, there is something here. There's something here. And that's probably one of the proudest. I'm still friends with that guy. And like I said, he worked in my department. He was the first one to ever do the program and believe in it.
Yeah. And it's such an awesome feeling when you have that one person who's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll give it a shot. And then you see the results. You're like on the inside, I felt like a little girl. I'm like, oh my God, it's working. Yeah, hell yeah,
Yeah.
And it's they're proud of themselves, but you as a coach, you're like, man, this is awesome. And then you keep doing it. So awesome. Well, thank you for coming in today. Where can my people find you?
You can find me in a couple places. I'll give you the two best ones. On Instagram, my handle is fitter, FITTER _fighter, FIGHTER, fitter fighter on Instagram. And you can find me on YouTube, which I've been getting real into in the last 6-9 months, at Reclaim Firefighter Fitness. Either of those, depending on how you like to consume content. I got some stuff that's a little bit more educational, a little bit more, 10-minute videos, or you can find me on the short form on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, brother.